Sure. Welcome to the speaker series organized by Students Learning and Student Engagement and Applied Learning team. Every time we look into a leader's journey and learn from their experiences. Hi, this is Konika Chatterjee.
This is Nikhil Rao.
From the batch of PGPMAX 2021. Our guest today created a revolution by making every Indian's dream come true. When India was waking up to the art of entrepreneurship, one man touched new heights to create People's Airline. On behalf of Indian Business School and the batch of PGPMAX 2021, we are honored to have Captain Gopinath among us. Without wasting any precious time here, I hand over the mic to Nikhil to introduce him. Thank you.
So this is the story of our country, our nation. This is the story of the common man as depicted by R.K. Lakshman, the great cartoonist. The common man who would only dream to fly. Indian aviation industry until the early 2000s was for the privileged and run by the privileged. Private airlines such as Jet, Sahara, and Kingfisher were dominating the skies. Big Indian companies like Tata's had tried a few times in vain to enter the industry. With high entry barriers, capital costs, licenses, and high costs made the business unviable for new entrants. Enter Captain Gopinath, a social entrepreneur, known as father of the low-cost airline by none other than Dr. Abdul Kalam. His life journey determined his core values and leadership traits and extraordinary courage. Founded Deccan Aviation, Air Deccan, and Deccan 360. Highlighting Air Deccan, which was incorporated with the growth strategy mindset, an airline which was here to cater to the 99% of the Indian population who were unserved. Air Deccan was built on 3 pillars: efficiency, innovation, and an inclusive business model. It started in 2003. By 2007, it was operating 380 flights, 67 airports, small towns, 25,000 passengers every day. 3 million Indians had flown with 1 rupee ticket. Can we all believe that? Now, let us watch a very heartwarming short film about Air Deccan, and then we will hand over the stage to none other than Captain Gopinath. Thank you. Can we play the video?
We have to start from the beginning.
Yeah, can we start from the beginning?
हरिराम जी, चिट्ठी खोल के पढ़ो तो भैया। दिल्ली से है, बेटे की। अरे ये तो प्लेन का टिकट है। अरे सुनो रे, प्लेन का टिकट भेजा है हरिराम के बेटे ने। क्या ढूंढ रहा है तू? ये
हवाई जहाज में 2 तरह के बैगेज होते हैं, एक चेक्ड इन, एक हैंड बैगेज। इसको तुम हैंड बैगेज की तरह ले जा सकते हो। begin.
Over to you, sir. We would like to actually hear from you.
Thank you, Nikhil and Konika. I just requested you to play the film so that I can create some interest in my talk and doesn't become like a typical PowerPoint presentation. I'll tell you the reason why I asked you to play that a little later. But before that, I would like to thank both of you and your colleagues who met me some time ago by chance and for inviting me. And though I was not doing too many Zoom calls during this lockdown because it was in a way a very sterile world, but I do once in a way, and I couldn't say no to you because I also have a emotional connect to ISB. Many years ago, before the ISB was founded, when there was a plan for or a vision for creating an ISB, I got a call from Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, where my helicopter was with him, saying that if I could coordinate with his chief secretary and give my helicopter for an aerial survey for choosing lands for the ISB. So I think Anil Ambani and a few others came there. And I gave my helicopter because there was a competition between Karnataka. Chief Minister S.M. Krishna was known for inviting entrepreneurs. And Chandrababu Naidu, who had then the man who transformed Andhra Pradesh. And so I told this to Karnataka Chief Minister. I said, look, there is a competition, this is in the papers. I think you guys are not moving fast enough. And predictably, as I thought, Chandrababu Naidu was more enterprising. And as the saying goes, the early bird catches the worm. And they decided by the kind of gestures that Chandrababu Naidu showed to get ISB to Hyderabad, they chose Hyderabad over Bangalore. So I have some emotional connection to this birth of ISB. And I've also come there a couple of times to come give talks. And of course, in those days, I flew down there and gave a talk. So anyway, thank you so much. I'm privileged. And I'll just share my thoughts more than giving you a how-to talk. Because I feel some of the fundamental principles of life itself, if in your life's journey, some of these things, will stand in good stead all times. Only the nature of the business or the nature of the project may change, but the underlying principles, I think, are true for all time. So thank you so much. It was Goethe, the German poet, who said, dare to dream and begin it. Dare to dream and begin it. Boldness has genius and magic to it. And can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes,
Very
sir. Yes, sir. Very well.
Because
Very well.
you have gone off the screen. Yeah. So when Goethe said that, all of entrepreneurship is in those two words. Is you have to dare to dream. You have to have a big dream, but the dream is not enough, and you have to begin it because from knowing to doing, if you don't take that leap, then it'll just remain a dream. So your dream has to be combined with venture. It has to be combined with adventure. Only then an enterprise can begin. It was George Bernard Shaw who said, he said that you see things and ask why, and I dream things, that never were and ask why not. So this aspect of an entrepreneur is all about dreaming things and visualizing it when you can't see the project. So that's why it said that vision is the art of seeing the invisible. It's a paradox. Vision is seeing, but it is the art of seeing the invisible, and the invisible is the future. Because for an entrepreneur, he's seeing the future, which others are not seeing. So a large part of my own journey was this aspect of seeing something which I was seeing, but not others. And there's a famous proverb in Kannada, which in English it says, if you have an abscess in your palm, you don't need a mirror. In Kannada, those who can, maybe there are a few who know Kannada here. Angayina hundige kannadi beke. Do you need a mirror to see the abscess on your palm? And the mirror is a consultant. The mirror could be a guru that you are seeking. So my first advice would be that if you are seeing something, then if you believe in it to the point of madness, then you have to take that leap of faith. Because if you go to a Bill Gates or a Narayan Murthy or a Kiran Mazumdar Shah or any of the modern day entrepreneurs and ask them, do you validate my plan? They may not likely would say no, or they may say yes. Either way, they may be wrong because they're not seeing what you're seeing. So when I, did my first, we could say, a kind of intuitive decision was that when I was in the school, and the kind of school that you saw in that movie, that Adekan movie, and the Adekan movie was made because when I started the airline, where I wanted 1 billion Indians to fly, it was a vision, it was a dream. And a dream must be something which cannot be reached, or 10 years or 15 years. It has to be a dream that you realize every day. When you say, I want to remove poverty, or when you say, I want to make every Indian fly, you will not, realize that dream in your life, but you will realize it every day, because every day you are discovering new things, every day you are making it incrementally. So I wanted to convey this message to the country, to the large population who are not flying, and that it is not just the cost barrier. I was also making the caste barrier, because there's a social barrier to flying. It's just like, even if there's a rich man from a village, even if he can afford a zamindar, he may not enter a Oberoi hotel because there is a social barrier to that. And so some of them who never dreamt of flying, who never envied flying, I wanted to make them fly. So I told this movie film producer, I said, can you make a feature film which is not a typical film? I'm not able to make out whether all of you are hearing me, because Konika, you're gone off the screen.
Yes, we are all able to hear you well.
We are able to hear you.
Can you come back
you.
in the screen?
Yes, sir. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better than I have an audience,
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And the way this idea came to me was that when I was on a Adekan flight myself, and in those days on the Adekan flight, we would sell everything, from water to because that was a small innovation. Because if you give away water, and if you're 8 million people traveling, that is 8 million bottles of water. That is about 40 crores or 4 crores. And then, you have to give free water to air hostesses, free water to the pilots and the ground handling staff, and people will getting down, they take water in their bags. So you can't stop it. So I said, if you are paying for water in a bus, because nobody serves you water. And in those days, nobody also gave you free water on a train unless you paid for it. So you pay for it. And so, because if you save money, then I can give you a lower ticket to those people who are not going to, buy a costly meal. And so when I was approaching Bangalore from Delhi. I could make out from her demeanor and her dress that she was not a hoity-toity lady from the city. She was from a rural area. And as the plane landed, the pilot's door opened, and she could see a small pilot sitting in a big plane, and there were all passengers getting down, in a hurry to get down, and she blocked the traffic. She saw the pilot in the cockpit, and she saw me, and he said, "Captain Saab, a Hanuman jaise आपका पायलट ने हमको जिसने वो संजीवनी जो ले आया हमको इसने ले आया." So she kept on showing her hand. हम सबको हनुमान जैसे लेके आया. And I asked her, where was she from? And she said she was from somewhere near Ayodhya. And she said her son was working in Infosys, and he had sent a 500 rupee ticket for her and for her husband. And that's how this idea came to me, saying that without making the poor people feel that they are poor, how do you make it aspirational? And I told the film director to make a small film to convey this fact that flying is now possible for everybody. And but it so happened the movie was 2 minutes long, and ad agencies typically have about 10 seconds or 30 seconds, and a 2-minute movie is too long, and it will cost you a bomb. And so my marketing guy John Kurila came up with this idea, and he said that he will go to the TV channels and say that you give it to us free, and we will take up hoardings and do a barrage of mails to say, "Old man in the sky, watch out tonight," and give the channel's name. And so that because the channels were competing with each other, the most popular channel, I think it was Z in those days, or I don't remember, we directed the audience for the TRP rating to go to that particular channel. So he was happy, and we got this 2-minute film, which also went to win many awards. But most important, it also coincided with our first ad, which said we not only break the cost barrier, we break the caste barrier, because everybody is in one class. That's just the background. So innovation is the key. And the next point I want to tell is that you need to believe in yourself. Self-trust is the secret, the first secret of success for an entrepreneur. You have to have that, not arrogance. You have to have that conviction. And when an idea comes to you in a very Vedantic way, you and the idea must become one. The idea and you cannot be two separate things. The idea must possess you, and you must be possessed by the idea. And only then you can achieve anything. Whatever sort of enterprise it can be. It's Leonard Bernstein who said that if you're a violinist, you won't ask, should I be playing? You start playing. So if you're an entrepreneur, and I'm not saying this because everybody can't be entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs need great managers, and many of you will become managers. But managers also can be entrepreneurial, and you can be entrepreneurial by becoming one with the idea of the project that you're leading, and that's possible if you listen to that inner voice. To each of us, there's a shine that that there's a light that shines to you alone. It is a particular magnetic needle that is pointing you to a north, and that is your north. And you have to discover that, and you can only discover that by attempting it. You can't discover your potential, you can't discover your dream by not attempting it. And the best way to attempt that is to listen to that inner voice. And that inner voice, people call it as instinct, people call it as intuition, and of course the rest is tuition. The tuition is important, but all the tuition is of no avail, if you don't ultimately fall back on your intuition, because there is analysis, and there is instinct, and there's a famous paper a paralysis by analysis, and death by instinct. So I had to combine that. When you want to embark on a venture, the fundamental idea, you have to rely on it based on all your past experience and everything. But ultimately, you have to rely on that instinct, because there's a point beyond which analysis cannot go. That point where, whether it is philosophy of believing in God, there's a point beyond which all philosophy becomes is faulty. All science becomes faulty, because even the greatest scientists say that you cannot ultimately discover the meaning of life, of meaning of creation. That is a mystery, but you can definitely discover the various phenomena of life. And so when I started, the first time Deccan Charters, the helicopter company, in 1995, I did it along with another army buddy of mine, was a helicopter pilot, and this idea came because I was already an entrepreneur. I had come from my farm for about 10 years, and after my farm life, I came to Bangalore. I was playing tennis and squash with him in the army club, and he was a pilot looking for a job. And so one day he said, "Look, why don't we start a helicopter company?" Because he was a pilot. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I'm not getting a job." So that sort of flashed across my mind. I said, he was an outstanding pilot. He was just about 40 odd years. He had retired earlier after 20 years service, and he was not getting a job. There was no helicopter company in the private sector in the entire South. There was one helicopter, which is a government helicopter with Chandrababu Naidu. There was one government helicopter with the Karnataka chief minister. And there was not a single private helicopter company. And we had a couple of them, the typical old world industrialists, the Birlas, the Tatas, and the Ambani. Even Ambani didn't have a helicopter then. And so these helicopters were largely used for, political patronage or personal use. And if a helicopter had to come, they had to plan 15 days in advance to prepare a helipad.
Wow.
And I knew that in the army, the pilots fly at the wink of an eye and land anywhere and pick up soldiers, either medical evacuation or an emergency. I said, we should be able to start a helicopter company where the helicopter can be, ordered on a telephone call or on a radio call. So this is the idea that came into my mind. And this was also in the context of, India was on the way to reforms. The Russian state had collapsed. China had not abandoned communism, but it had embraced shamelessly or brazenly capitalism. And Narasimha Rao had started the reforms, and state governments, the South especially, were competing with each other for investments. And I knew that this was an inexorable path for reforms. There may be, somebody from Swadeshi Jagran Manch or some of the local, people from the communist parties who may talk about, imperial capitalism. But I knew that this is something that it cannot be stopped. The wave of reforms had come, and I realized that there is only one caste going forward. In spite of the fact, even today, even as I speak, whether it's in Karnataka, where the Lingayats, went and up in arms asking for a chief minister to be made from the Lingayat community. In spite of all that, there is only one caste which ultimately will dictate political decisions, which is the caste of consumers. There's a consumer caste, and I realized that we had to move with the times and be ahead of the times. And this large issues of political whims informed me that with the China and India are rivals, they say America and Russia, with China having embraced capitalism, and India cannot be in isolation, and pilots without jobs, engineers without jobs, and no competition. No competition because there was no helicopters, and even the odd ones here and there, customers were not their helicopters. They were not looking at customers. They were using the helicopter as a personal toy or personal for ego offer political patronage. And so I didn't need to be an Einstein to decide that I had to do this, take on this venture. So when I was in the Phoenix airport around that time, I saw a plaque in Phoenix airport. This was in 2002. There was a board there which said 1,000 flights a day, 1 lakh passengers a day. Phoenix, back of beyond. It was not, New York or anything like that. And I was on the way to meet a friend of mine who was running a helicopter company in the Grand Canyon. And I saw this board on the airport. It's a new airport. I said, oh my God. As in India, with all the 40 airports, in those days, only 40 airports were operating. And US had something like about 2,000 airports, which were operational. And India had about, 40 airports. All the 40 airports put together was flying less than one airport. So I didn't need a McKinsey to tell me that there's a huge, inexhaustible market. A billion Indians, if you're giving them doles, if you give them subsidy, you're looked down upon. But a billion Indians were hungry, but was hungry consumers, not as hungry people to be fed. That is a powerful market. And I saw this and I could feel it and touch it everywhere. So when I came back to India, when I was flying in the helicopter from Goa to Bangalore, across the Western Ghats, I saw, as I came across villages, that there were large reflective things from every village. So I told the pilot, let's fly down a bit. And we found that there were dish antennas in those days, about 20 feet dish antennas. One entrepreneur in the village collected 1,000 rupees from 20 people, 20,000 rupees, and he bought a dish antenna and gave a connection and was charging something like about 200 rupees. So even in 2000, there was a new India. I could touch it, I could feel it. And that new India, I discovered it from the helicopter when I suddenly realized that all those people were watching television. And there was Kannada news channel, Telugu film channels, Telugu Kannada channels, Hindi news channels. And what were they showing in between the channels? They were showing advertisements, asking you to buy Fair and Lovely cream to make village girls fair. They were asking you to buy toothpaste, buy Hero Honda motorcycles or a Maruti car and a refrigerator. And that was the change that India was experiencing. And the villagers were aspirational. And that's when I came back and I announced, the question everybody asks is, where's the market? Because I was starting a low-cost airline where I was going to start with, from day one, internet tickets. There was only 1% of India which had internet connection. Only, I think, 1% or less than 1% had credit cards. And you need internet for the low-cost airline. But I knew in my heart of hearts that if I give a cheapest ticket, if I give a ticket even at an average price of 4,000 as against 12,000, which was a flight between Bangalore and Delhi, every ticket on Bangalore-Delhi was 12,500 in 2002. And if I could offer some tickets at 1 and some tickets at 500 rupees and some tickets at average of about 4,000 rupees, people will find a way to buy the ticket. Either they have the internet, or they will call, or they'll go to a petrol bunk, which I had converted to internet kiosks. I converted 1,000 post offices to internet kiosks. We had 290 Reliance cafes, internet cafes, cafe day cafes. All these, we converted about 7,000 points of sale where people either could go to a place and buy a ticket through internet. And the idea was, everyone asked, where's the market? Only 1% of India is flying. We had only 13 million people flying in India, and 600 million were flying in US. And I said, I'm looking at the 99 who are not flying, and you're looking at the 1% you're flying. I mean, it was Einstein who said, I'm not a genius, but I'm infinitely more curious. I stay with the problem longer. My challenge was not if I should do it. So the question, as I was always telling you earlier, when you have, of course, I had the best finance guy, and I had the best analyst from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, who was doing a PhD in statistical analysis. I had the best, training captains from British Airways. But the fundamental idea of, should I start an airline for the common man, that, I did not put it to test, because it was like asking, will I get water if I dip it in the Ganga, right? Of course, today you may have to ask it, because there's a climate change and the Ganga is finding it a bit difficult to get the ice melting because of climate change. So the question is that you have to rely on that and not become suicidal, which is also the famous paper which I talked about. But this fundamental aspect of launching an airline or launching whatever venture that you have in mind, you have to rely on it at your gut level. And in another sense, Tagore said it in a different manner. He said, a mind all logic is like a knife all blade. It bleeds the hand that uses it. So, Tagore in a mystical way said that. And, Emerson said, if you believe in your dream, the universe will conspire to make it happen. And Walt Disney himself said, if you dream it, you can do it. And I can, if I at all I'm superstitious, it's only I'm superstitious in this manner, that if you work hard, if you have iron will, and if you dream big, things will come to you. And people ask me, you are, how did you get this idea? I mean, my father was a poor teacher. I'm not son of a politician or a businessman from a traditional family. But, this is what I want to say, that, that for all of you who have any kind of dreams, that energy and passion is more important than capital. It was true then, it's true today, and will be true tomorrow. If you have the, a mind which is open, a mind which allows ideas to fill you in, if there is that inspiration that comes to you, then the resources will meet you. But C.K. Prahalad, late C.K. Prahalad, my good friend, used to say, less resources and high aspirations is a great combination than high resources, which will automatically create low aspirations. Because when nature adds difficulty, she adds brains. When you have great focus, your will give you new eyes. And it's always true. And you can say it with your children. You give them too many resources, you give them everything that they want, they will be complacent. You cannot create hunger when there is plenty. You can't ask them to pretend to be having having difficulty in getting resources by giving them too much of plenty. So with these, I think, few words, I can go on for some more time, but I think I was asked to speak for 20 minutes. And so you want me to speak for another few minutes, or you want to ask questions?
You go ahead, sir. We're actually mesmerized by the kind of, things what we're hearing from you. So you can go ahead and speak for some more time, for another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll go into the question answer session.
Okay. So when, because you're all going to be dealing with in a country, as you know, is a country with full of contradictions, where we still have caste politics. We have politics which is dirty. And I would also like to say, and more than politicians, often it is the businessmen who are antagonistic to reforms. What I mean is that, from centuries, there is always this antagonism between capital and labor. When I say capital, old world capital is conservative. People who are in power are conservative because they want to retain power, and people who are radicals, who are in the labor, who are entrepreneurs, they want change. They may also be selfish. They may also eventually become greedy, but they want change. And the entrenched people do not want change. You could see that the Birlas ensured that nobody got a license, for manufacturing cars. There was all the old Bombay Club. There was only one scooter which had 10 years waiting list, and so monopoly, often creates. You may have a monopoly, but let's say 20 years ago somebody had given a monopoly to manufacture only Benz cars. He wouldn't have succeeded, because you need that ecosystem of everybody being, moving up the value chain in economics. Then only, Benz car can be purchased. Benz car cannot have a monopoly in poverty. So Naresh Goyal, he was a child of the reforms. He was a travel agent, and from the bottom, he got his license because there were reforms. But once he got the license, he ensured that Tatas didn't get a license when Tatas wanted to enter into the airlines. So I'm not blaming just politicians. But what I'm trying to say is that there is corruption, more in India than in other places, and less in India than some other countries. But there's large corruption in India at various levels. And it's not enough that you don't have corruption only at the top, at Mr. Narendra Modi's level. You need to have corruption eliminated on the day-to-day affairs. You want to get a death certificate, you want to get a birth certificate, you want to get your electricity connection, you have to bribe today. I mean, that is the reality. So the thing that I want to say is that as an entrepreneur, you have to make up your mind that I'm not going to bribe. So when we wanted to set up the helicopter company, Captain Sam and I, we decided that we will not stop, like Vivekananda said, till the goal is reached. We had no deadline. We didn't say that, okay, for 1 year we'll try, after that we'll go back to whatever we were doing. And we said we'll keep going. We will not stop. We will, with that famous saying, you're a failure only when you quit. You're not a failure as long as you're trying. Try one more time is the mantra all the time. To succeed, try one more time. If you put that on your desk, try one more time. So we kept going. It took us 3 years to get our license, and we did not pay a rupee because we didn't have a rupee to pay. And the journey took 3 years because every time we went to get some license, they wanted some clearance, and that clearance had a 6 months time, and that 6 months would be over and we had to go back again. So it was a constant, running around in circles. And then one day I walked into the minister's office because the secretary told me, who was an IAS officer, who was clean. He said, Captain, I have sent your file to the minister. It is yet to come. It is he has not signed it. I said, then why don't you just go and remind him? He said, Captain, if I go and remind him, he will think I'm an interested party. But I said, you're not an interested party, but he will think I'm an interested party. He knows the file is there. He's waiting. So waiting means that he's waiting for the entrepreneur to go and meet him and give him some money. So I walked into the minister's office and I barged in and I just let out. I said, look, the prime minister is making speeches that, India is now going to be free of corruption. License will be given free. I said, why aren't you giving it to me? So the minister, believe me, looked surprised. Maybe he already knew it and said, let me see, where is the file? And he said, why didn't you come to me earlier? And he was a Congress minister, known to be corrupt, but he signed my file. And he said, thank you, Captain. Sorry, I made you wait. I never knew that, you're an ex-army officer. So maybe he thought, industries will give the money. Why I take it from this young entrepreneur? There's another time also, from Janata Dal, where when Devagowda was a minister, there were huge corruption charges in those days too, because there was rumor that the party asked Tatas for money for giving the license, because the FIPP had already cleared it. But when I went and met the minister, the aviation minister of that time, and I called him to inaugurate, because I thought if I call him to inaugurate, then he'll not be able to ask me any bribe. And that's in a lighter vein. But anyway, what I want to tell is that whether it was a BJP minister, whether it was a Janata Dal minister or a Congress minister, though there is corruption, I did not pay any rupee, because we kept going. Of course, if you go with a suitcase with cash, like they said, a fool and his money are soon parted. Somebody eager in will put some in his own pocket, the middleman, and then give the rest to the minister. So the point I'm making is that if you keep trying, in that famous mythological story of the Gajendra Moksha, when the elephant was caught by the crocodile, where Vishnu came and killed the crocodile and released the elephant, and just like Draupadi got the bailout of her sari. So if you keep knocking on doors, one door closes, 10 others open. This is true whether there is in entrepreneurship, or whether it is in opportunities, because this world is not secure. If you look at the last 1,000 years of history, it has always been, there were very brief periods of peace. It has been full of wars and pestilences and famines and earthquakes and a whole lot of issues. But there is no security. Security is mortal's chief enemy. If you are secure, you are complacent. But well, there is no security. Don't look for security when you start a business. If you demand certainty, you cannot be an entrepreneur. But there is opportunity. The world is full of opportunities, and India is a magazine of plenty. It is a country full of resources, and for an entrepreneur, where there is want, where there is hunger, where there are obstacles, if the roads are bad, that's how even the helicopter idea came to me, because the infrastructure was so bad. I said helicopters are a great idea to take people to remote areas. If an entrepreneur wants to go to a remote area to set up industry, you must if you have bad roads and mountains, the helicopter is the answer. And where you have got 1 billion people, you have to innovate with the Indian mud. So when we started the Air Deccan, the reality was there was a price point, because in that price point, if you go up, you may have one man who can fly with a private jet, which is the biggest jet in the world. But if you come down that price point, you will have 5,000 people who can charter a helicopter. If you come down, there'll be some people who are in 500,000 who can fly in business class. And if you come to the bottom at a price point, they'll be having millions of people who can afford. So you have to innovate a price point so that your customer base is inexhaustible. So you need to have perennial enthusiasm. You need to have inextinguishable optimism, because optimism is key to an entrepreneur. You have to be it's not enough to be energetic. It is not enough to be hardworking. It's not enough to dream big. You have to be optimistic. And then what is optimism? Optimism is that tomorrow the sun will rise. After winter, there'll be summer. You know, when a farmer plows the field, in spite of the previous year's crop failures, when a farmer plows the field, he does not doubt when he sows the seeds. He believes that next day the sun will rise, you will have rains, you will have the crop, and you will harvest it. That optimism is what makes an entrepreneur. And so you need to be optimistic. And even if you don't believe that you have all the design specifications of the Lord, you know, it's a very famous saying of the bumblebee. I don't know who said it. The bumblebee, if you see, unlike a bird, is not designed to fly, but it doesn't know it and flies anyway. So, so on that note, I would like to end my short talk, but I would like to say it one last time, that the golden age for India, the golden age for India was not behind us, and the golden age for India is ahead of us, in spite of all the problems we have, because the entrepreneur must work with the government. The entrepreneur must have the courage to speak out against the government when the government is making mistakes, because the problem with our industrialists today is that when the budget sucks, whether it is during a Congress time, when the Congress ruled for so many years, the horrible budget, but you can see in the front row all the major industrialists, you know, praising the budget. You don't have many industrialists, hardly any. I can count even in one hand, I think maybe one or two, like you know, Rajiv Bajaj, for example, I have seen one. But otherwise, I don't see any industrialist. Every is a psycho environment. So the entrepreneur must have the courage to speak to the government. The politician is you in the mirror. The politician is me in the mirror. So we have to together change this country, because quitting is not an option, either in entrepreneurship or quitting India is not an option. And you know, the option of cynicism, you know, is good to question, but you can't be cynical. You can't be skeptical on everything. You can't be. You have to. You know, cynicism is a slow suicide. You know, as Emerson said, it's a slow suicide. So you have to recognize the good things, the beautiful things. There's so many beautiful things. You know, there's good music. There's still great places to visit. There are a lot of ills, but a lot of good things. So criticize what you have to criticize, so that everybody knows where you stand, what your position is, but admire the good things in life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for this insightful speech and insightful details about your life, your journey, and about entrepreneurship. We have a few questions, and then you know, we've got a little time short, but you know, I hope you have a little more time. We can extend this session for another 10-15 minutes, if that sounds okay.
Yeah, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. So to begin with, you started with the note about ISB, saying that you had, you know, an association with ISB. We also read from your book that you know, you've done your executive education. You have, through one of the premier institutes, you went around to different countries and you learned about, you know, the companies as well as the other, I would say, the executive education part of it. The question back into you was, what was your takeaway from that executive education? How did it help you transform yourself and the organization itself? This is a very important question to us, because a lot of us who are actually taking this call, you know, are from the mid-career, senior career. We're actually doing our executive education. We would like to actually hear from you on what was your takeaway and what is that we should actually look forward for such kind of executive education.
Yeah, I think you know, the program was called International Management Master's Program in Management, and I had just applied for the license for the helicopter. It was taking time, and I had a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, called Professor Tirunarayan in the Institute of Management, Bangalore. And he called me one day and said, there is an extraordinary program that has come out by a professor, who's a very, very dear friend of mine. And I also did a few programs with him in India, called Henry Mintzberg, one of the, foremost management, he doesn't like the word guru, management gurus. Tom Peters said that he's one of the top 10 thinkers of the world. Henry Mintzberg, it was his idea, and he said that, and he had also written a famous paper in Harvard, which is repeated, republished many times, called Management, Folklore and Myth of Management, Folklore and Facts. And what he had written there was the idea for this venture. So he was himself very entrepreneurial. And that was about the fact that, what they teach you in management school is too sterile, too academic. It doesn't fit with the reality of the world. And so what he did was he conceived a program where it was the early days, where the world was getting globalized and a lot of changes were happening. He realized that, there are different parts of the world, the East, the center, and the West. And there's different culture, different technologies, different management methods. And so he said that it's better to get people who are in senior management, mid to senior management, or 12 to 15 years to lead to a master's degree. And the first was in the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. The second was in the Lancaster Management School. The third was in Hitotsubashi in Tokyo. Then the fourth was in Canada, Montreal. And the last was INSEAD in France. So, and since I was starting a corporate company and I was an entrepreneur with very unschooled, not educated in that formal sense, and I was very entrepreneurial, very chaotic. So I thought it's good to understand what the managers think. So I went basically that I will understand the mind of the managers whom I will be hiring. So there were 35 people. There were 5, I think, from Toyota, 5 from Fujitsu, 5 from Red Cross, and 5 from British Airways. So, or I think Lufthansa, 5 from Lufthansa. And there were 5 from India, out of which I think 2 were from corporate companies, and there were 2 entrepreneurs. And so I just, put up my hand. So since they asked me to join, I said, look, this is what I'm starting, a helicopter company, and I would like to be part of that. And so I went around the world, and it was fascinating because they got both people who had worked in industry, but they were teaching in ISB, teaching in INSEAD, people who are in industry, like Tirunarayan was in industry, MICO for many years, but had come back to teaching. So he chose professors who were into teaching, but who had industrial experience, corporate experience. He also had a lot of people who are outside the main business stream. Like, for example, in UK, because it was a land for, they had historians and others who came in there. And for analytics, it was in Montreal. So it gave me a good perspective, and we had to write a thesis on after every leg. It was about I think 1 month there, and then 3 months off. At the end of 3 months, you have one instructor dedicated to you, or one doctor dedicated to you. He'll take, and then you have to interact with him and write a thesis. So that opened my eyes as to how the management world works. And also the bonus of it was 2, 3 of them, or 3, 4 of them. Another one was Kunal Basu, who was here last 4 months ago, and he stayed with me. Kunal Basu was in those days professor in Florida. Then he became a professor in Oxford. He was an MBA. He was a PhD management state business school. He was teaching the Oxford Business School. guiding PhD students. He's also a famous novelist, Kunal Basu, Henry Mintzberg. And so all these people are still very good friends of mine. Henry Mintzberg comes once in 2 years and stays with me. So it became a good ground for me to learn, basically, and opened up my eyes because I was, in a sense, in a cocoon. And though I was reading a lot, even in those days, but it expanded my consciousness.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the insights. I see a couple of hands raised and from the batch, and I would invite a few people to ask some questions. Amarishwar, would you like to ask your question?
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Nikhil. I'm lost of words to hear after you hear Captain Gopinath. I mean, it, you know, कहते हैं, it comes from दिल के अंतर से, अंदर से. Your books were wonderful, simplify, or you cannot miss that flight, the essay one. I saw the Hindi version of the movie Udaan also, but when it comes to hear from you, it's really wonderful. Thanks for such lovely insight and very candid conversations. And you had a dream, but rarely you find across the globe people who fulfill other people's dream. Millions of Indians wanted to fly. That was a dream. You fulfilled them, Captain. I mean, that's something, I mean, I don't know if I think, I cannot recall anybody who has fulfilled million people's dream. Everyone does their own dream, no doubt, which you did. You have to be passionate. You have to do what you said. That's wonderfully said. But I always had a question, Captain. You have been very candid. I'm going to ask today. You can answer that. You cannot answer that. What about your decision in 2007? As of today, if you look back, I'm very sure you must have understood the merger with Kingfisher. And unfortunately, Kingfisher didn't work well for various reasons. Some insight on that. And another thing, and today we had less of time, we couldn't hear you. I'm part of ISB alumni committee also. So we have a leadership summit coming in September, and this is organized by this very class of 2021, the class which has called you today. If you have time, they might get back to you. And if you can throw on the summit more time and, you know, a panel discussion, we'll be really honored. Thank you. And I'm happy to know that you were associated with ISB. If you were not there, I would not have been an alumni, the helicopter round. Thank you, Captain. Your opinion about your 2007 decision, sir.
Yeah, as you, okay, let me be honest about it. You know, when I launched a Deccan, so I was I was a man obsessed to the point of madness. It's not that it was an NGO. It was a sound business model. To make everyone fly is a sound business model even today. Because of circumstances, when we started, the dollar was barrel was $20. It went to $140 from $20, and combined with that, so $20 a barrel to $147 by the time I was giving we took a decision to give it to Malia. And 5 airlines, came into the one behind the other. Success of Deccan, SpiceJet, Malia, Go Air, Indigo. There was other 1 or 2 smaller ones which folded up, like Premier and all that. And we were, since we had expanded, I had also a lot of issues in the government. In spite of all my fight and everything, I was not getting enough. I was not getting enough landing parking places. If I have, in a way, turned to an advantage, because I had aircrafts in Guwahati, I had aircrafts in Calcutta for the night halt, in Trivandrum, in Cochin, whereas Jet Airways had 30 aircrafts in. They were also flying everywhere, but they had 30 aircrafts in Delhi and 30 in Bombay, and 1 or 2 in other places. So there was some kind of not equitable. It was not equitable. I was having a lot of problems. But the most important thing was that we were still losing money. We were not into profit. We had good cash flow, but we were still losing money. And as you know, I had raised a lot of equity. I raised private equity, and many of you who are going to venture into private equity. One of the dangers of private equity, often you have seen it in one is of course, everybody sometimes become rich, and everybody sometimes go bankrupt. But what happens in private equity is that when private equity comes, generally they eventually have majority control. When you dilute yourself, that's what happened with Steve Jobs. In the first time, if you have read the Steve Jobs story, Steve Jobs, became a minority. Though he was a chairman, he was a founding entrepreneur. He became a minority, and he brought a guy. It was he who brought a corporate guy from Pepsi, president of Pepsi, to head Steve Jobs, and there was a rift between the CEO whom Steve Jobs brought and Steve Jobs, and the board, sided with the CEO, and Steve Jobs, resigned, was asked to resign because sometimes equity partners, when the situation is extraordinarily good, even if you're losing money, but if they realize that by removing you, they're going to lose the business, like Narayan Murthy. He had only 4%, 5%, but they wouldn't touch him because the company, he's the brain behind it. So they of course, they never, thought or dared to remove me, but they put pressure on me, saying that, the airline sector is very uncertain. The stock market is, is blazing hot, is rising every day. There are people who want to invest. So why don't you, allow us to exit by allowing investors to come in? And in one shareholder meeting, one retired person from a government, he said, look, I have put all my money in your dream, in my stocks, through my stocks. When I'm going to get some returns. Though a 10 rupee share was already doing at 150 and the market cap had reached close to $1 billion, many of them who had purchased the shares because in the third year, they were waiting for some returns. And most importantly, my investors put pressure on me, saying, Captain, your ego is coming in your way. You want to control the company. You please, because big names like Anil Ambani, TPG, all of them were knocking on the doors of the equity partners to take over. And since the company was now established, we were the largest airline. We had become bigger than Jet Airways. We had overtaken Indian Airlines 1 year earlier. We are the largest airline in terms of network, and airlines were established. Had a solid team of 500 pilots, and had a chief operating officer from Ryanair. Had a chief engineer from British Airways. Had a training captain, from KLM and Air France. So the company was well established, and anybody could take and run it. So the equity partners said, look, we do not want to throw you out, but allow others to invest so that we can exit and make our money. So with a great reluctance, a lot of my colleagues were against it. And this one shadow of doubt crossed me, which is what I think was the mistake, that I should have hung on. And not given it. But the doubt was that what if something goes wrong and the investors lose their money, right? So that was my doubt, and I said, okay, investors have put a lot of money, so I went along, and in that sense, it was a good decision. But my personal dream was killed, but I think the dream lives on. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, Captain Gopinath, or an epitome of self-belief. And had you not done that, I mean, the Udan scheme of government would not have been fructified today, connecting all the small cities. Thank you so much, and look forward to hear you in our leadership summit if you can grace the occasion. Over to you. Yeah, over to you, Konika and Nikhil.
Thanks, Amresh. Sir, will you want to take one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Shiv, you are up next.
Okay. So thanks, sir. Thanks for this highly motivating session. And my question is that Indian passenger transport system, as we all know, is still let's say, developing, not in a great shape. as the corners of the country are not well connected. Of course, with Udan scheme, government is trying to do that, but it will definitely take a lot of time. And apart from that, do you think that, I mean, what are the major steps government is taking in terms of maybe sea sector, or let's say by road? We have seen the roads, we have got very excellent roads in last 20 years or 25 years. So that part is already taken care of. Now the transport thing of passengers. So do you think government is planning with some major drastic changes in next 5 to 10 years apart from the Udan scheme, or will it be expedited so that in next 10 years we again see a well-connected India? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very valid. In fact, I've also written about it. I think the problem is that somehow, it happened with the cars. If you had said, let's have good roads first and then cars, then neither you would have had cars nor the good roads, right? The government went and gave licenses to 20 companies when the reforms came, and now because there are so many cars, roads are getting built, right? There's a lot of good progress, but still, I think we are 50 years behind Europe or USA as far as roads are concerned, even today. As you know, it was America did not build roads, roads built America, right? And China has accomplished that. We still have to accomplish it because our highways are still of not extensive, and they're not of good quality as yet. Though it looks good because we emerged from such rutted roads, but extraordinary work has been done, right? Similarly, in the aviation sector, unfortunately, aviation is still not considered integral to the economy. I think if our vision is to have a developed economy in the widest sense of the word, aviation, along with railways, not one or the other, along with roads and along with shipping, had to be integral to that vision. Because what aviation does is, well, all the other things are as important. That's the reason we require all those things. You require internet, you require all kinds of connectivity. The aviation connectivity is still not seen to be integral. You can see the kind of ministers who are given to that department, the kind of prominence that is given to the department, the same prominence that they have given to road transport is not still given to that. And what they are not realizing are two other transcendent ripple benefits. Airlines subsumes geography and knits the country together, both physically in real time and emotionally. When you are connected with aviation, the country will not be alienated. Large parts of India are even today alienated. You talked of Northeast, and even today, Northeast, we had the highest number of flights from Calcutta to Northeast, but you can't land in any of the Northeast airports even today in most of the airports after 4 o'clock because the airports close. There's no night landing facility in any of them. They don't have good landing navigational aids because you have an airport, but if you don't have good navigational aids, then the aircraft can't land because of the visibility. So most of these airports in the Northeast, apart from the fact there's only one airport in many of the Northeastern states, then don't have good navigational aids, and they don't have, the connectivity to penetrate deep into the bowels of the country, across the country, because of this reason. Because it's not big money. They'll spend 200 crores on the buildings, the airport complex. They'll spend 300 crores, 500 crores because there's contractor involved, easy to sort of siphon off money there. But they'll not put 15 crores, 20 crores on the navigation. I said, keep a thatch hut in small towns as airports, because who wants to spend time at the airport? Only when the flight is delayed, you need to be at the airport. Otherwise, even in the best airports, you want to go home. And you don't want to stay in the airport, even if it is a fantastic airport. Airport is the last place you want to be in, even in a magnificent airport. It's only because you're transiting, flights get cancelled, flights get delayed, you want something. They have made it into a separate profit center. But otherwise, you have to have low-cost airports where it's not a Taj Mahal, where you can give the lowest fares. It has to be clean, it has to be well lit, it has to be, absolutely, proof from inclement weather. put a zinc sheet and put thatch on the top if required. And a guy must get in and get out fast. But spend all the money on navigation, because then, your landing is 99% certain. So this understanding has not happened, that the government, sometimes is penny wise, pound foolish. As I said, they spent 500 crores on some things, but they won't spend 50 crores on navigation rates. And so I think it's still not, it is not still, so one is it subsumes geography and knits the country together. The feeling of alienation, why industry has not gone to Northeast? Because there is, jobs are not there. And because jobs are not there, there is insurgency, there is Maoism and all the Naxalism and all these things. But if there are jobs, you see, someone said, you need a large middle class and a small poverty and small rich. If you have a very, very large poor people and a smaller middle class and very large number of rich people, it's unstable. You need to have 90% of the middle class, because they're the ones who bring stability. They got jobs, they got shares, they got houses. They will not disrupt it. They will not join Maoism and Naxalism, and you cannot create jobs if there's no aviation going into those places, because industries will not go there to invest. There's no cargo movement. Along with that, you have to have the roads and other things. So I think the government must realize that and completely, penetrate deep into the bubbles of this country, because even today, less than 5% are traveling by air. So if anybody amongst you wants to start an airline, this is a good time.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Konika.
Sure. Yeah, we'll just end with the thank you note. But before that, a yes or no question. With what happened with Kingfisher, with what happened with Jet, does it sound like it is the death of the full fare airlines? Is it only going to be a budget airline, or it's both which is going to happen? A quick answer and then.
Yeah, my feeling is that the full service airline, domestic, is inherently a flawed model. When I told this to Malia, he said, look, I sell the largest low-cost whiskey in the world, Bagpiper. The largest number of whiskey bottles that was sold in the world was Bagpiper. It was under Vijay Malia. He said, I also have a Scotch. I know both the sectors. But I said, yes, but the guy who buys the Scotch buys the Scotch, and the guy who buys Bagpiper buys the Bagpiper. But when your business class aircraft moves, the business class seats are empty sometimes. On holidays, it is empty. On evening, so business class passengers do not prefer to go at 6 o'clock, right? Most of them want to go at a convenient time at about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, so that they can reach Delhi at 10 o'clock or Bombay at 9:30. They don't want to get up at inconvenient, because the company will pay you business class, whether it is 17,000 or 20,000, right? It's not your money, company pays. And so the economy passenger will end up paying for the business class passengers. So in the same aircraft, the model, see, when you say low cost, it's not just, economy seats. It is turning around the aircraft fast. In a full service carrier, you can't turn around the aircraft, because your aircraft has to fly more and be less on the ground. It makes money when it flies. There's nothing more useless than an aircraft on the ground. To make money more it has to sweat. And when the aircraft sweats, all the assets in the company sweat. The manager sweats more. The airport where you got a kiosk, or where you got because you're paying a fixed charge to the airport. That is also amortized. The equipment that you're using, everything that will be sweated more. But in a business model of the full service, the Bombay flight, for example, of Jet Airways or Vistara, will wait for a flight from London. It will wait for a flight from Singapore. It will wait for a flight from Mauritius. It will wait for a flight from Delhi before the Bombay-Bangalore flight takes off. So he has to give a longer gap when it lands. Whereas the low-cost airline lands and takes off after 15 minutes. And whatever is the cost becomes revenue. You are giving food, that's cost. But when you give food, aircraft weight increases. When the weight increases, the fuel increases, right? And you have elaborate meals. the aircraft becomes heavier. You have got magazines and newspapers, aircraft becomes heavier. The fuel goes up. You've got business class seats, and you've got all kinds of gadgets. They all require maintenance, and aircraft gets grounded. So low cost is, I said one day, is a Udupi hotel, Darshini hotel. I said Udupi, and they made a headline out of it. He said Udupi in the sky. What is a Udupi hotel? You stand there, buy your token, stand and eat your idli vada. And you can't stand there too long because there's a guy behind you, elbowing you out. So you come there, buy and go. But it looks very simple. But the moment you make it, self-service, you're eliminating a lot of labor. The moment he's occupying, small square feet, so rent becomes cheaper. If you put seating, then you have to maintain. You have to have water charges goes up. You have to have toilets. You have to have, it's more uncomfortable. So it is a higher footfall. Udupi can be in profit, and the Oberois can still be in the loss. And as you know, most of the 5-star hotels are in the loss. So it is a quick, but the business model allows you to do it. In a full service model, it doesn't allow you because it is 100% internet, right? There's nobody whom you can talk to buy a ticket. Whereas in those days, Jet Airways had, you had to go to the airport to buy a ticket, or you had to go to a travel agent to buy a ticket. So we introduced, buying tickets on the internet or through a call center. We had only one call center in those days. We had call centers for British Airways in India, but we had no call centers in India for Indian Airlines, Airlines of India. So we introduced that. So you eliminate a lot of middlemen, which what the low-cost airline does. So, and you also make money in a lot of other things. I put an advertisement of Sun Microsystems on my aircrafts. It was a moving billboard. And Sun Microsystems paid me, 20 lakhs an aircraft per month, which was half my lease rentals. So, the existing model, because if Indigo has a brand new aircraft, or the new airline which has come is going to have a brand new aircraft, and your legacy airline is an old aircraft, economy, why would you want to go in an economy of a business class where you are stuck with the aircraft for a longer period and pay more in a Jet Airways economy than a Indigo economy? Or tomorrow, if another airline comes, which is all economy. And the thing about the low-cost airline is that thing called, it's called the KISS principle. Keep it simple and stupid. It is a saying evolved by was an aircraft engineer for the what is that Air Force, the American jet F-16. When he designed these jets, he said you design the aircraft and make it so simple, because on the battlefield, even a stupid guy should be able to repair it and fix it. So the low-cost airline, like in many businesses, you have to keep it simple and stupid. And believe me, it's very difficult to keep it simple. Whether it is in writing, whether it is in your design, you have to make things simple. And usually people eventually make it complex, because bureaucracy creates complexity, because somebody will say, sir, at least give water, at least give a newspaper. So then you say, okay, no, I want to get these passengers also, and you start adding complexity. Yeah. See, when you go by business class or first class or Paris, you go business class to Paris, but from Paris to Lyon, Paris to London, Paris to Oslo, you go economy. In Air France, you go economy. In Lufthansa, you go to Frankfurt, from here to business class. But from Frankfurt to Munich, Frankfurt to London, Frankfurt to Toulouse, you go economy. So there is no business class airline in Europe. In all these airlines, Air France and this one. So the paradox is, Ryanair, which is the low-cost airline, the cost per seat is 39 euros, cost per seat. Revenue per seat per passenger, or cost per seat per passenger, is about 39 euros. This is in profit. Lowest, next highest is 55 EasyJet. It is in profit. British Airways is 250 euros per passenger. That is the revenue. but they're usually at a loss.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We'll actually close it out with Konika
Thank you very
giving
much,
the closing.
guys. Great chatting with you. Take care. Wish you all the best in your careers.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining. Sir, your words have been very insightful, and every time we hear from you, we learn something new. So everybody will be back with more speaker series and more leaders who has not only inspired us and has touched billion lives. So thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sorry, before we close, I'll just request, can please switch on the cameras? We'll take a group pic with the captain.
What? How do you do that?
We'll use it as memory. Some more of you can also take the screenshots. Thank you, sir.
We're done? Okay. Great. Thank you, guys. Send me the picture and the link.
Sure.
Take care.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. Very
Thanks,
inspiring.
Captain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Captain. Thank you. Looking forward for another session soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.